Okay, let's unpack this.
That's good.
So our source material today is quite unusual. It's really not what we typically look at.
No, not at all.
It isn't a government white paper or a heavy academic journal. It's actually the transcript from a practical language learning resource.
The English Easy Practice podcast.
Exactly.
And I think that immediate context is, well, it's vital. We have to keep that in mind the whole time.
Why do you say that?
Because we're analyzing something that is designed from the ground up to be highly accessible and, immediately actionable for a listener.
For a language learner, specific.
For a language learner. And the fascinating twist here is that while the primary goal is teaching everyday English.
Right, vocabulary phrases.
Exactly. The core content uses that vocabulary and that conversational practice to deliver a comprehensive motivational lesson.
It's like a Trojan horse for self-help.
It's a dual-purpose strategy, and it's actually quite clever.
So we're peeling back the layers on this language lesson, and the topic they chose to build their entire conversation around is the power of positive thinking.
Which is an enormous claim to embed in a language course. It's a big promise.
It really is. And they summarize the central thesis right up front. The phrase they use is, change your mindset, change your life.
And that phrase, it's not just a tagline, it acts as the strategic anchor for the whole lesson.
What do you mean by anchor?
Well, it tells the learner from the very beginning that their improvement in the target skill, so English proficiency, is directly linked to an internal psychological shift.
So it's not about the textbook, it's about your head.
That's what they're saying. They establish that this is not about brute force memorization alone, but about cultivating a state of mind that actually facilitates learning. It's immediately positioned as a foundational principle.
And it seems specifically tailored to deal with the common roadblocks.
Oh, absolutely. They're targeting the anxiety, the tiredness, and the self-doubt that are so common among language students, or really any student of a difficult skill.
So our mission today is not just to summarize this advice. I think we need to treat it as a serious instructional manual.
I agree.
We need to dive deep into the specific cognitive benefits they claim and really extract the precise practical steps outlined in the conversation. The exchange between the characters Mark, Anna, Emily, and Mike.
And see how those steps supposedly link positive self-talk directly to measurable improvement in a complex skill.
Right. Why is this attitude presented as such an essential tool for overcoming hurdles like stress or worry?
Well, if you are the type of learner who struggles with inconsistency, or maybe you often feel overwhelmed, maybe you worry that your progress is just too slow.
Which is probably most learners at some point.
It's almost everyone. The source material explicitly addresses you. So we need to scrutinize if this highly ambitious claim that internal self-talk is the primary change agent for skill acquisition actually holds up when we apply, psychological frameworks to their very practical advice.
And the hosts of this lesson, they promise 2 immediate benefits to their listener. First, a chance to practice listening and speaking. That's the surface level.
The language part.
And second, the motivational scaffolding necessary to stay positive and never give up.
And that second point is so important. It implies that a positive mindset isn't just a byproduct of success. It's not something you get after you do well.
It's the prerequisite.
It's the necessary fuel, the fuel for the repetition and the persistence that are required to succeed in the first place.
So what we're really doing here is a kind of psychological audit of a language lesson.
That's a great way to frame it. Let's see how they attempt to formalize this process, moving beyond just, simple encouragement into what they present as an actual mechanism of change.
All right, let's start with the foundational claim that really initiates the entire discussion.
Okay.
The character Mark is asked why he's always so happy and motivated, and he gives a remarkably direct explanation for his academic success.
He's very direct.
He says, "When I think good thoughts, I feel stronger and learn better."
And that is a very, very rich claim.
Unpack that for us. Why is it so rich?
Because it instantly links an internal mental state thinking good thoughts to 2 very tangible physical outcomes.
Strengths and learning.
Physical and emotional strength and enhanced learning capacity. So it's positioning positive thinking not as a soft skill, but as a performance-enhancing cognitive tool.
So when Mark says he feels stronger, what's really going on there? Is that just a feeling?
Well, he's likely describing an increase in his sense of what psychologists call self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy. Okay, that's a term we absolutely need to explore here. For our listeners who might be prepping for a meeting or just, trying to quickly grasp the psychology behind this, what is self-efficacy?
In simple terms, self-efficacy is essentially the belief in your own ability to succeed in a specific situation or to accomplish a task.
It's the I can do this feeling.
It's exactly the I can do this feeling. And how Mark's statement relates to that is, well, it's a perfect clinical parallel. If a learner genuinely believes I can do this, they are operating from a high sense of self-efficacy.
And that belief, it comes before they even start the task.
Exactly. That belief, even before the action starts, influences their willingness to exert effort, their persistence when things get difficult, and their resilience after setbacks.
So Mark is claiming his good thoughts are actively generating this sense of competence,
Right.
which then translates directly into better performance, or as he puts it, he can learn better.
It's a causal chain in his mind. Good thoughts lead to strength, which leads to better learning.
And he doesn't leave it abstract. Mark immediately gives a concrete example of this mechanism working in real time.
Yes, he does.
He talks about changing his internal dialogue, specifically from "this is too hard" to "I can do this."
And the claimed result of this tiny linguistic shift is, it's functional and it's immediate. He says, my brain works better.
My brain works better. That's a huge statement.
That is the pivotal moment in the source material, I think.
Why pivotal?
Because he isn't claiming that the English magically gets easier. He's not saying the problem changes.
He's saying he changes.
Exactly. He's claiming that the process of engaging with the material becomes cognitively simpler because the self-imposed mental blockade, the thought, this is too hard, has been removed.
And that shift has a name, doesn't it?
It does. This is what psychologists call cognitive reappraisal.
Okay, so another key term.
A very key term. Cognitive reappraisal is the active process of changing the way you think about a stressful situation to alter its emotional impact.
So you're not changing the situation, you're changing your story about the situation.
Precisely, you're reframing it. So the mechanism they're proposing isn't magical mood lifting. It's an active mental restructuring that, in theory, frees up cognitive resources.
And the host of the lesson, Mike, he elaborates on this point.
He does.
He notes that when people think positively, they feel better, they feel more confident, and, this is the most important part, they become more open to learning.
And that idea of openness to learning is incredibly important in something like language acquisition.
Why is that?
Because if a student is fearful or self-critical, they are naturally defensive. Their guard is up.
So they won't take risks?
They avoid speaking, they avoid engaging in spontaneous conversation, and they shy away from taking the very risks that are necessary for fluency.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of silence.
It is. So high confidence, which they argue comes from a positive inner dialogue, counters this defensiveness. It fosters that openness, making the learner willing to try, fail, and try again.
And Mike connects this directly to persistence.
Yes, he says positive thinkers don't give up so easily.
Okay, I have to push back on that a little bit, though. We are, at the end of the day, extracting this from a language lesson, which naturally has a strong motivational component. Are we really comfortable saying that this internal self-assessment is just as important, or maybe even more important, than the actual mechanics of grammar practice, memorizing vocabulary lists, or dedicated study time?
That is a crucial question. And the source material, to its credit, doesn't shy away from that very implication.
How do they support it?
They provide evidence based on observing their own students. Anecdotal, yes, but powerful in this context.
So they're saying, we've seen this work.
They're saying they saw students initially held back by these negative declarations like, I can't do this, or my English is bad. And those statements weren't just descriptions of their current ability.
They were predictions.
They were predictions of failure, operating as self-fulfilling prophecies.
But then they provide the actionable solution.
Yes.
They say when those very same students made a conscious decision to change their mindset and critically change their language to phrases like, I will try my best, or I'm improving every day,
The outcome changed.
their English proficiency gets much better. The difference, they claim, lies entirely in the self-talk.
And this is where the cognitive science really does support the anecdote.
How so?
Think about it this way. If a significant portion of a student's working memory, their mental RAM, basically, is consumed by internal worry.
Like, am I going to fail this test? I'm so bad at prepositions.
Exactly. If that's happening, those cognitive resources are simply unavailable for the complex task of decoding and encoding language. The brain is busy worrying.
So it's a resource allocation problem.
It's absolutely a resource allocation problem. By replacing the declaration of inadequacy with the declaration of effort and progress, the learner clears that mental noise. It lets their cognitive engine run cleaner and more efficiently.
So the foundation is absolutely critical here. This positive thinking they describe is an active mental hygiene practice.
That's a great term for it.
That boosts confidence, increases persistence, and according to the source, leads directly to better practical results in the skill itself by optimizing the brain's function.
Which means the takeaway for the learner here is that the first hurdle isn't the difficulty of the material itself.
It's your own head.
It's the difficulty of your own attitude toward the material.
Okay, let's move from the theory of this mindset shift to the actual script they provide.
The practical application.
Exactly. The source doesn't just leave this change as an abstract idea. It gives learners the exact lines to use inside their own heads.
It's a very prescriptive approach.
It's about literally changing the sentences you deploy during moments of challenge.
And they establish a very clean contrast. The negative internal monologue, that moment of overwhelm, is captured by one single thought.
This is too hard.
This is too hard. And the active, positive replacement is equally simple and assertive. I can do this.
And as we just noted, the claimed result of that internal linguistic replacement is incredibly powerful. He says, my brain works better.
And this repetition of the idea that positive thoughts make learning easier is, I think, the core takeaway.
Explain that.
It suggests that the difficulty of a task isn't purely objective. It's not a fixed thing out there in the world.
It's subjective.
It's subjectively amplified by our own negative assessment of it.
So if we look deeper at the psychological function of that specific phrase, I can do this, what is it actually doing in the brain?
Well, you can think of it as an inoculation against fear.
An inoculation. I like that.
When you're facing a complex task like trying to construct a sentence in a foreign language in real time, the brain often defaults to the quickest escape route.
Take your flight.
And in a learning context, that's often avoidance or just shutting down. The phrase, I can do this, forces the brain to initiate effort and to start searching for solutions rather than surrendering to the overwhelm. It's an act of what we call attentional filtering.
Okay, explain that concept, attentional filtering, in this context.
Attentional filtering just means directing your focus to the most relevant inputs and ignoring the irrelevant ones.
So it's about what you choose to see.
It's about what you choose to focus on. If a student is thinking, this is too hard, they are filtering their attention toward frustration, toward failure, toward the sheer complexity of the task. They are actively seeking evidence that confirms their difficulty.
They're building a case against themselves.
The perfect way to put it. But when they switch to, I can do this, their attention shifts. It moves to potential solutions, to past successes, however small, and to the immediate steps required to execute the task.
So they're filtering for resources, not for obstacles.
Precisely. And this is the functional improvement that Mark describes. The brain, now focused and, as we'll see later, calmer, simply works better.
And to really grasp the scope of this change, we have to understand the core vocabulary word they introduce here.
Yes, mindset.
The source defines it very clearly for the learner as the way you think about things, your attitude. So what they're really asking the learner to do is engage in metacognition.
Another big term, but a simple idea.
Right. It's the active process of monitoring and controlling your own thought process. You're thinking about your thinking.
And then, once you're aware of it, you deliberately realign that fundamental attitude.
This feels like it moves far beyond simple optimism or just, being happy.
It does. It's a systematic management of one's own internal narrative.
And the hosts, they clearly link this managed attitude to hard academic results.
Yes, they do. We see the character Anna introduce a moment of skepticism.
She's the voice of the listener, really.
She is. And she asks if this self-talk could actually translate to something like test scores. She says, maybe my grades will improve too, almost in disbelief.
And Mark gives that definitive confirmation, which closes the loop on the argument.
He says, exactly. A positive mindset changes everything. You'll see success soon.
And they even define grades for the English learner, the scores or marks you get on a test. This is an enormous promise.
It is. They're suggesting that cognitive reappraisal and positive self-talk lead directly to measurable, quantitative improvement.
So let's explore how that could actually happen, because it can't just be magic. How does thinking I can do this make you better at a multiple choice quiz?
Well, it links back to sustained effort. Improvement on a test or grade requires consistent, motivated study over time. It's not about one moment of inspiration.
It's about the grind.
It's about the grind. A student who maintains a positive mindset, I will try my best, is far, far more likely to stick with the tedious, repetitive practice necessary to internalize grammar and vocabulary.
Than the student who is constantly telling themselves they're doomed to fail.
Of course. The student who thinks they'll fail is going to find reasons to stop studying. The mindset in this model acts as the engine of persistence.
And that persistence is the direct link to the improved grade.
That's the mechanism.
So the chain of logic here is very clear. Internal self-talk controls your self-efficacy. That self-efficacy then controls how you use your cognitive resources, making your brain work better.
Yes.
And that sustained cognitive effort is what translates directly into measurable academic success.
You've got it. The language you use inside your head is the immediate moment-to-moment controller of your overall efficacy.
It really democratizes the process then.
How do you mean?
Well, you don't need a specific expensive study guide or a private tutor to start. You just need to police your own internal vocabulary.
That's right. It makes the ultimate power for improvement completely internal and accessible at any moment of frustration.
All right, so for anyone learning a new language or any skill really, mistakes are not just probable.
They are mandatory.
They're absolutely mandatory. They are the currency of progress. So if this whole positive thinking framework is going to survive contact with the real world, it has to have a robust method for dealing with failure.
A very robust method.
And this is where Anna again steps in as the listener's proxy and poses the critical question, but what if I fail?
And the source material's answer is, for me, perhaps the most psychologically powerful point they make in the entire lesson.
Which is?
Failure is just the step to success.
So it's not the opposite of success.
It's not the opposite. This framing completely eliminates the concept of failure as an endpoint. It's not a destination. Instead, it reclassifies failure as a necessary sequential stage in the process of achieving success.
It's no longer a verdict on your ability.
It's not a verdict at all. It's just data. It's feedback.
This sounds almost identical to the principles underlying a growth mindset.
It is.
We talk about that concept a lot. And while the source material doesn't use that specific term, the entire philosophy they're describing seems to be built right on top of it. Can you draw that parallel for us?
Absolutely. So a fixed mindset, as a quick refresher, is the belief that your ability is innate and unchangeable. It's a fixed quantity.
You're either good at math or you're not.
Exactly. So when a person with a fixed mindset makes a mistake, that mistake proves, I am bad at this. The case is closed.
But the growth mindset is different.
The positive thinking framework outlined here promotes the growth mindset. That's the belief that your abilities and your intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work.
So when a person with a growth mindset makes a mistake,
they see it not as proof of inadequacy, but as a temporary setback that provides valuable information for improvement.
Yeah.
And this is precisely what the hosts in the source material instruct positive people to do.
Okay, let's detail those specific behavioral patterns they describe for these positive people. First, they interpret mistakes not as blunders, but as lessons.
And that word choice is so deliberate and so important. A lesson, by definition, implies a curriculum. It implies an opportunity for learning.
It's structured.
It's structured. It transforms the highly emotional act of messing up into a rational, instructional moment.
Can you give an example?
Sure. If I'm learning a language and I misuse the subjunctive tense, that mistake is not proof I'm a bad learner. It's a lesson.
A lesson telling you what to study next.
It's a lesson telling me exactly where I need to focus my next 5 minutes of study. The emotional temperature of the situation just drops immediately. You take the sting out of it.
Which leads right into the second crucial point for building resilience. Positive people, according to this resource, don't feel bad when they make a mistake.
And if you can eliminate the shame and the disappointment, you eliminate the primary emotional triggers that make people want to quit.
So it's an emotional regulation strategy.
This neutralization of the emotional reaction is absolutely key to achieving persistence. Imagine the listener is, say, 15 minutes into a demanding shadowing exercise. repeating complex sentences out loud.
Which is very difficult.
It's very difficult, and you feel very silly doing it sometimes.
Yeah.
And they completely fumble the pronunciation of a word.
Okay.
If their internal dialogue is, I sound ridiculous, I'm wasting my time, I'll never get this, they're going to stop.
Of course.
But if, however, their dialogue is, okay, that phrase was hard, let me try that specific vowel sound again, they continue. The source is prescribing an emotional safety mechanism.
And their action after the mistake reflects this forward-looking attitude.
Yeah.
It's simple, it's efficient, and it avoids any kind of paralysis.
What do they say?
They try again and improve. There is no time wasted on dwelling on the failure, only time spent on the next iteration.
And this is a perfect illustration of applied resilience. The mistake is identified, the lesson is absorbed, and the process of attempting a higher quality response begins instantly.
So for our learner persona, the person who wants quick, thorough knowledge, this might be the most valuable takeaway of all.
I think so. The speed in which you recover from an error determines your ultimate learning rate.
So if you spend 3 hours lamenting a mistake,
You've lost 3 hours of actual learning. You've made a bad trade. The person who recovers in 3 seconds and tries again is going to learn exponentially faster.
so it effectively turns failure into a self-correcting feedback loop.
Right.
Instead of failure being the opposite of success, the source is defining it as the sequential path to success.
It reframes the entire experience of academic struggle. It makes the next attempt a non-negotiable, logical next step.
And it reinforces the idea that persistence isn't some magical personality trait you're born with.
No, it's a direct consequence of a well-managed mindset. It's a skill you can learn.
Okay, now let's synthesize all of these benefits. We've established that attitude influences effort, which then influences results.
That's the chain.
But the hosts take it a step further. They claim a direct physiological and cognitive link, and Mike asserts that positive thinking helps the brain stay calm.
And this calm brain hypothesis is where the soft motivational advice really starts to meet genuine neurobiology, even if the source material doesn't use those clinical terms.
So there's real science behind the calm brain idea.
There is. When a learner is stressed or anxious or engaged in negative self-criticism, their body releases stress hormones. The main one is cortisol.
Okay.
And cortisol is known to inhibit certain functions of the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus.
And those are the areas of the brain we need for learning.
They're absolutely critical. They're the areas for memory consolidation, for complex problem solving, and for language retrieval.
So a worried brain is literally physically less capable of learning and recalling information.
Precisely. If your brain perceives the learning environment as a threat, even if that threat is just the internal fear of failure or embarrassment, it diverts resources to survival functions.
It's back to fight or flight.
It is. It's not optimizing for higher-level cognitive tasks like forming new verbal connections. A calm brain, on the other hand, which they argue is achieved by actively replacing those stressful thoughts, experiences lower cortisol levels.
And that optimized state is what allows for the specific functions they list to improve.
Exactly.
And what are those specific benefits they link to this state of calmness? They provide a checklist that really every student dreams of.
It's a very appealing list.
They say you will remember more, you will speak more clearly, and you will learn faster.
And those are all direct proxies for cognitive optimization. Remembering more relates directly to memory consolidation and hippocampus.
Which is less inhibited by cortisol.
Right. Speaking more clearly relates to verbal fluency and reduced anxiety interrupting your retrieval process. And learning faster suggests an improved ability to process and integrate new information efficiently.
So they are claiming, in essence, that emotional regulation is the critical precondition for effective cognitive function in learning.
It's not a nice to have, it's a must-have for optimal performance.
Now, it's crucial that the hosts preempt the idea that this is all just simple wishful thinking. They say this very explicitly.
They do, and it's a very important line.
They state, it's not magic, it's a real change in how your mind works.
And that provides the necessary actionable justification for the learner. They are defining mindset change not as a vague hope, but as a functional, measurable mechanism.
That distinction is paramount, isn't it?
It's everything. It grounds the practice in conscious effort. The brain doesn't just spontaneously decide to work better.
It's not passive.
It works better because the learner has employed that cognitive reappraisal we talked about. They have consciously replaced an inhibitory thought like I'm overwhelmed with an activating thought like, I can do this.
And that restructured thinking reduces the internal friction.
It does. It allows the neural processes for retention and for output to run at full speed without the drag of anxiety.
Let's tie this back specifically to the common language learning roadblocks, things like shyness or the fear of public speaking.
Yeah.
The hosts directly address listeners who might feel shy or scared, and they remind them that they can change their life by changing how they think.
Because fear and shyness, at their core, are emotional responses rooted in catastrophic prediction.
What do you mean by that?
The thought process is, if I speak, I will make a mistake, and if I make a mistake, I will be judged and embarrassed.
And that prediction generates the anxiety.
It generates the anxiety that can physically impede clear speech. Your throat tightens, your mind goes blank.
So how does the positive mindset fix that?
If the positive mindset replaces that catastrophic prediction with an optimistic acceptance of effort, something like, I will try my best and I know that mistakes are just lessons, the emotional barrier starts to dissolve.
The threat level goes down.
The threat level goes way down. The confidence gained from that positive mindset is what allows for the necessary next step of actual speaking practice. The system addresses the emotional roadblock first, which then clears the way for the physical act of learning.
So the overall benefit is really holistic.
It seems to be.
It addresses emotional stability with the calmness and reduced fear, cognitive efficiency with better memory and faster learning,
Right.
and behavioral results like clearer speaking and higher persistence.
And it all stems from that one simple, but let's be honest, very demanding act of policing one's own internal monologue.
It frames self-talk not as self-help fluff, but as the essential tool for managing your brain's performance environment.
That's the core argument they're making.
Okay, philosophy is great, but our listener wants the executable steps. They want the how-to.
This is the implementation section.
Exactly. And the source provides a very specific sequential action plan to initiate this mindset change, starting with a really simple instruction given to Anna.
The first step is, it's deceptively simple. It's almost physical. The instruction is to first smile more.
Just smile more.
Just smile more. And we often dismiss smiling as a superficial reaction to happiness, something that happens after we feel good.
Right. It's a result, not a cause.
But this instruction taps into decades of psychological research, specifically something called the facial feedback hypothesis.
The facial feedback hypothesis. That's the idea that the physical act of smiling can actually influence your emotional state rather than just being a result of it.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
The physical action of contracting the muscles you use for smiling sends signals back to the brain, which can initiate or reinforce feelings of happiness and positivity.
So it's a biohack, almost.
It's a feedback loop. By asking the learner to smile more, they're providing an instant, low-effort physical cue to kickstart the emotional shift needed for the cognitive restructuring to take hold.
It treats the body and the mind as one continuous system.
One continuous feedback loop, yes.
That makes the shift feel much more manageable. It's not some huge intellectual effort to start. It's just smiling.
It's an accessible entry point.
So step 2 moves into the core intellectual exercise. This is where they introduce that crucial vocabulary word, replace.
And they define it very carefully.
To take one thing away and put something new in its place.
This is the active, conscious intervention that is required. It mandates vigilance.
You have to be watching your own thoughts.
Constantly. The student can't just hope that positive thoughts will show up. They have to actively monitor their internal stream of consciousness for negative statements.
And when they find one?
Upon detection, they must consciously execute the replacement script. This is the hard work of metacognition we mentioned earlier.
It requires the learner to become both the student and the teacher of their own thoughts.
That's a great way to put it. You're coaching yourself in real time.
But what's often understated here is how much energy that constant vigilance takes. I mean, if I'm trying to focus on complex grammar rules and simultaneously policing my own self-talk, that dual tasking is really difficult.
It's incredibly difficult, especially at first.
So how does the source suggest maintaining this rigorous replacement strategy?
The source implies that repetition is the key. The more frequently you force the replacement, the quicker that new positive pathway becomes the default.
So you're building a new habit in your brain.
You're literally relying on the brain's plasticity. The negative default thought, this is too hard, is a well-worn neural pathway. It's like a deep groove.
The path of least resistance.
It is. By repeatedly practicing the switch to, I can do this, the learner is building a stronger, faster alternative pathway. Initially, it feels like you're fighting the current, but with enough repetition, the positive thought becomes the new low-effort response.
And step 3 introduces the required daily commitment, making this an ongoing practice, not a quick fix.
No, it's a discipline.
And the specific instruction is a daily affirmation, saying, I will try my best every day.
And that affirmation is so carefully worded, it reinforces the commitment to effort over innate ability. It operationalizes the growth mindset on a daily basis.
And they define thoughts here as well.
Yes, as something you think in your mind, a good idea or a feeling.
Hmm.
By choosing to focus their thoughts on this construct, the learner is dedicating cognitive energy to a positive frame every single day.
It's daily rehearsal for self-efficacy.
It is. It's mental practice.
Now, beyond these 3 explicit steps, the hosts provide this continuous stream of advice that emphasizes self-compassion and momentum.
They do.
They advise the listener to say good things to yourself and, I think profoundly, be kind to yourself.
And this is a critical psychological counterbalance to the self-flagellation that is so common in high-achieving learners.
That inner critic.
That inner critic. If you have been programmed to believe that harsh self-criticism is necessary to motivate improvement, the idea of being kind to yourself can feel, well, it can feel counterproductive, like you're letting yourself off the hook.
But based on what we established in the last section,
It's the opposite. As we established, self-kindness, the absence of that harsh self-criticism, is what allows the brain to stay calm, thereby optimizing the actual cognitive processes needed for learning. It is essential for resilience.
And finally, they connect this mindset to achievable action by stressing forward momentum regardless of the scale.
This is a huge point.
The advice is every day take one small step forward.
And this links the massive, intimidating goal of changing your life or achieving fluency to bite-sized, non-overwhelming daily tasks.
The one small step is a tactic against procrastination and perfectionism then.
It's the perfect antidote. Perfectionism often stems from a fear of failure, which leads to task avoidance. You're so afraid of doing it wrong that you don't do it at all.
So by framing the daily requirement as just one small step, the learner lowers the barrier to entry.
They ensure momentum, and they continuously reinforce the self-efficacy they're working so hard to build.
So the positive philosophy isn't just a separate module you learn?
No, it's woven into the methodology. It becomes the persistence engine that makes the repetitive, difficult work, the shadowing, the speaking practice, both possible and effective over the long run.
The takeaway here really seems to be that you're not just learning English, you are actively training your capacity for persistence by managing your internal dialogue.
And that dialogue is the ultimate leverage point for learning any complex skill.
So, after all that, what does this all mean for you, the learner, as you're filtering through endless tips and tricks on how to study better?
Right.
We've taken this language lesson transcript and discovered a powerful, evidence-supported framework for cognitive improvement that's built almost entirely on the management of attitude and self-talk.
And the rapid summary is this. This system is claiming that active self-talk, literally replacing phrases like, I can't do this, with assertive commitments like, I will try my best, reduces your cognitive load by calming your brain.
And that calm brain leads directly to superior memory, faster learning, and clearer speaking.
Crucially, the system reframes mistakes. They're not proof of failure, but essential lessons that are required for improvement, which is what sustains your effort over time.
And the practical action plan is a commitment to what we call metacognitive hygiene.
I like that term.
You smile to initiate the process, you rigorously replace negative thoughts with positive ones, you commit daily to effort over perfection, and, most importantly, you practice self-kindness.
It is an internal behavioral adjustment that costs nothing but attention and effort.
We also have to remember the resource's insistence on repetition.
Yes, that's key.
They instruct the learner to consume the lesson many times, which underscores that mastering this positive mindset, much like language fluency itself, is a skill.
It's a skill that requires frequent rehearsal. You have to practice positive thinking until it becomes your brain's new, efficient default setting. You're carving a new groove.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to carry forward.
Okay.
We often view self-kindness, saying good things to yourself and being gentle with your mistakes, as purely emotional comfort. It's a way to soothe ourselves during difficult tasks.
A soft skill. A luxury, even.
Exactly. But if we follow the cognitive claims outlined in this material, the idea that kindness leads to the calm brain, which in turn optimizes systems like the hippocampus for memory and retrieval.
Then self-kindness ceases to be a luxury or a comfort.
So is it possible that this positive self-affirming mindset, as defined by this resource, is not just one study technique among many, but the ultimate cognitive prerequisite, the very foundation that makes every other study technique you employ possible, effective, and sustainable in the first place? What is the academic cost of being unkind to yourself?
Indeed. We look forward to diving into your next Hack of Insight soon.